want to welcome everybody to our webinar today. In particular, we're going to be talking to our partners at Broadcom, and we're going to take a deep dive into the Tanzu platform. So we'll go ahead and get started here. I want to do some introductions. Go ahead and go on to the next slide here. So, I'm going to be the host today, myself and Mike McHenry. I'm the product manager for cloud at Lightedge, and we also have joining us Mike McHenry, who's our principal technologist and all-around smart guy. And we're super excited to have Purnima, the general manager of Tanzu from Broadcom, join us today in our discussion as we bring to you the Tanzu platform and all the goodness that it has in it. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide there. All right. So want to thank everybody for being here. Lightedge, is invested in Broadcom, and we believe that they are developing a strong offering with continued investment. One of those offerings is Tanzu AI and containerization. We're excited about the Tanzu portfolio, and we want to have a collaborative experience talking about opportunities with the platform. So thanks so much for joining us today, Purnima. For those that are unfamiliar with it, what Tanzu is, can you explain to us what is Tanzu at a high level? What is the mission of Tanzu within Broadcom, and what problem are you solving for enterprises today? Oh, you're on mute. Let's unmute you.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
There we are. Yeah, we can hear you great.
Great. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. And so let's start with, as you said, what is Tanzu?
Yeah.
I'm assuming everybody knows what's VCF, right? VMware Cloud Foundation is the core private cloud foundation that gives you an IaaS, which means VMs, compute, network storage, and it gives you a core dial tone for containers, namely Kubernetes, CAS. So then the question is, what is the role of Tanzu? So often you have infrastructure, but then what do you do with the infrastructure? You're using the infrastructure to build and run apps. And that is what Tanzu platform does. So Tanzu platform layers on top of VCF and gives you a very clean interface to easily build your applications, run your data services, because no application lives without data, connect them all, and manage them in production. What it means is your developers don't have to come and ask for VMs and computes and network and storage and Kubernetes clusters. They just say, hey, here is my code, push it to production, connect it to a database, and run it on containers. And Tanzu takes care of the entire automation on top of it. So it's really making your private cloud accessible to your developers. All public clouds also have similar services, right? When you go to Google, you have the core GCP, which is your compute. Then you have GKE, which gives you Kubernetes, but then you have Cloud Run. And what is happening is, in today's world, Cloud Run is becoming more and more popular because customers are saying, hey, I don't need to think about VMs and containers. I want my app to be containerized. I want it to be modern, and I want it to be in production, patched, updated, scaled, and secured on an ongoing basis. So they use Google Cloud Run for that. So Tanzu gives you that PaaS service, as well as it gives you a data service, which is, look, no application really is built without data. So the standard data services like your SQL, your Postgres, your caching, your RabbitMQ messaging, are all part of the portfolio. But you also get these advanced data services such as your data warehousing or data lakehousing capabilities. And really, the advent of AI has made this all very must-have, because you're saying, okay, I've got this infrastructure, and now I have to build an app. Maybe it is powered with AI. I need to know how to get access to my data. I need to be able to easily deploy my application so that I can enable it with AI.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thanks for the explanation there. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Mike. Purnima, talk us through kind of the pieces and the parts here and how these are all working together. And we want to encourage our audience to ask us any questions you might have for Purnima. We can take those in
That'll be
live
great.
time, and
Please
and
do
we
ask
can
questions.
we can answer those. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, so Duncan, what was your question?
No, excuse me. So as we look at kind of this slide here, and we talk about our hybrid cloud story here at Lightedge and how we've partnered to enable all of these pieces. Where does Tanzu fit in that story? What makes it such a powerful a platform to use here?
Okay, so where most companies that I talk to, enterprises or even mid-sized companies, all want
Mhm.
choice. And for some workloads, you want dedicated environments, whether it is private cloud or a hosted cloud like Lightedge does, right? I get a lot of compliance, I get governance, I get control. But then maybe for early development or maybe even for edge or for certain types of apps, they also want to use public cloud. Now, often you may have these different platforms that you're managing, but for an application developer, why should they care, right? If IT goes up in abstraction layer, what happens is, imagine if you use Tanzu platform, you can give them a consistent interface and an API, whether you are in public cloud or in hybrid cloud or private cloud. So Tanzu layers across all these clouds and gives you that standardized API to build your applications.
Super powerful. Thanks for that explanation. Mike, was there anything that you wanted to add? I always want to make sure I check in with you as we go forward.
I think Purnima said it well. I think from Lightedge's perspective, we have a long history in servicing regulated verticals, right? And we see a lot of interest, continued interest in private cloud for several reasons. One is cost, cost containment. It becomes difficult to manage these things at scale when they're built in the public cloud. It's much easier to manage cost within a private cloud. The other big concern tends to be data sovereignty, right? And I think we see that concern amplifying as workloads begin moving towards AI, data analytics, things like that. There is risk in taking sensitive data and doing things with that sensitive data out in the hyperscaler, right? So there's a trade-off, right? The hyperscalers represent immediate rapid deployment and flexibility of capabilities. But when you dial in those capabilities, you often have large regulated businesses considering bringing that back in-house, repatriation, right, for those reasons. So what you need then is a partner that can service those next gen workloads, just like Purnima went through. If we think that workloads of the future are just VMs, we're kind of missing, a big piece of what these workloads need to run in the future, right? So one, you need a technology enablement partner like Broadcom VMware to unlock that. And then two, you need some sort of infrastructure hosting partner to provide the scalability that you expect from the hyperscalers, right? That really unlocks something that I think is pretty unique in the industry right now. When you think about that combination of being able to build, call it a next gen private cloud that has all those capabilities, there's really nobody else in the market that's targeting that use case right now, right? We do see a lot of
Yeah,
interest, particularly in the regulated space.
that's great. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that point of view. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide here. I've got another question for you, Purnima. So let's say I'm a CEO investing in digital transformation. What business outcome should I expect from adopting Tanzu platform?
Yeah, so that's a good one. So let's start with from as I said, why are you investing in a cloud? Why do you even have as Mike talked about, why do you have a cloud? You're ultimately using it to run your applications, to run your data services, to fuel your business needs, right? That's what you're doing. And as Mike also said, in the past, we used to think applications as very static, monolithic things. You write them once, you package it nicely into a VM, you put your data stores, you fill your data in it, and things get into it, and then you put it into your infrastructure that's private or public, and you're using them. But in the modern world, And even without AI, applications are not static. Your business needs move continuously. And the whole problem statement is no longer, can I get a VM on tap or can I get a Kubernetes environment on tap? The problem statement is, I have a business need. I'm, let us say, automating a workflow for my business. I'm adding a new customer service portal for my business. How quickly can I get from idea to production? That is the problem statement that Tanzu solves. And Tanzu has primarily three main things, but I would say two main things within the portfolio. The first part is, hey, to get an idea to production, you want to be able to write code well and code fast. And that is why we have Tanzu Spring. Spring is a topmost Java development framework. And nice thing is, not only can you in a traditional way write Java applications faster, but you can also, most AI tools like Claude and OpenAI, etc., are very, very well versed in Spring because it's open. So they can also write a Spring code or a Java code very well for you. And we make sure with the Tanzu Spring that all the Java code that is written well, it is written to the spec, it is written at a high level of fidelity and security, which is very important because security is key. With speed, you can't give up security. So that's the first piece. But then say, great, I've written my code with the help of a framework or with the help of AI, it doesn't matter. But I've now got it in a proper enterprise class framework like Spring with Java. Then the question is, and by the way, the input can be Java or the input can be also .NET or Python or any code, right? Now I say, okay, I've written this code, but how do I get it to production? And usually if you think about it, for all people who are listening, probably if your developers have to get to production, they have to come to IT, maybe even if you're containerized, if you're VMs, you ask for a VM, you ask for containers, then you ask for networking, you ask for load balancing, you ask for a connection to data pool, you ask for credentials, you ask for certificates that have to be inserted for communications. Mm-hmm. The list of things that you have to do, even if you have a pipeline, all of these things have to be scripted into your pipeline. So what Tanzu platform does is, we said, why should we have to do it in a repeated ways? Imagine if I already am sitting on top of, let us say, Lightedge. Lightedge has, let us say, put the whole stack together with a private VCF cloud and Tanzu. Then why should your company's development teams have to suffer through all of that? Imagine the interface was, hey, I've built code, it's checked in Git, register my Git repository, and from there, take the code to production. And the command usually is push. So you just say single API command push. The platform engineering would have configured, hey, if you do push, make sure it goes to this project, make sure it goes to this org. But all the rest of the work of provisioning clusters, of provisioning the containers within the clusters, networking them, connecting the load balancer, connecting the routers to route out, is all done by magic, by the platform. So what the platform gives is takes that abstraction level one step higher. Well, at one point, we used to go and configure OS in the VM. We don't do that now, right? With virtualization, we just said OVA. Then with containers, we just said OVA and networking. And if a container falls down, bring it up. Now this is the next level of abstraction. And it's very, very critical for the new world because things are moving fast. Apps are generating fast. People are vibe coding things. But the core point of putting it in production and networking and doing this automation still stays. And that's what Tanzu platform allows you to do. So you got Spring to help people code better, platform to get the application logic into production. But tell me a single large scale app that can be written without a backend strong database solution for persistence. And that is where baked into the platform, we have standard databases, Postgres, MySQL, your messaging, RabbitMQ, and even your caching systems like Valkey. And even Gemfire. But also more and more now customers are saying, especially in regulated industry, that I'm sitting on a ton of data. And right now the world is telling me the only way to bring that data into my app or use intelligence from that data, I have to ship all of it up to a Snowflake or a Databricks. And that's the only way I can get value out of it. But what Tanzu data and intelligence allows you to do is two things. It brings intelligence to your data where it is sitting today. So if your data is on-prem or if it is in a dedicated cloud like Lightedge, it says, okay, your data is already there. You don't need to move it. Let us layer in data intelligence Let us bring structure to all your data, whether it is SQL or whether it is unstructured or whether it is documents, and give you analytics. But more importantly, let's also easily stream it into an app so that your app can use this data in a secure, consistent way with consistent APIs. So think of the Tanzu portfolio of bringing all the way from development to apps in production to connected to data as a way to bring your business ideas to life faster. Okay.
I love those features. That's a great explanation, Purnima. Go ahead, please. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries. Two other things I think are important to call out for business leaders kind of considering this technology. One, Tanzu is a very mature architecture platform, right? Lightedge has well over 5-6 years of experience with it. Purnima, I'm sure you can give us longer data set on how long it's been in use. But then two, it's still in use and expansion of use within some very large named customers, right? So this is not a new platform. It's not a risky investment. It's in use in, I think it says on the slide here, many of the Fortune 100s are already using this and have used it for many years. Could you speak maybe just briefly to that, Purnima?
Thank you. I was so focused on making sure you knew that it was accelerating your business apps to product. But look, exactly as Mike said. So this is a mature technology, has been there in production for over a decade, millions of apps in production, and mostly business critical apps, mission critical apps, where even a single instance goes down, you're talking about bringing a banking system of a country down type of thing, right? Mission critical apps, most of the large very, very suitable for regulated industries where they don't want anybody mucking around with the lower level details. You want configuration to be set, configuration to be precise, to be secured, and in an automated way, always patched. Great. It is built off a lot of open source work, but it has got all this, strong security and regulation and compliance-based framework built around it. And the kind of stats that customers tell us is quite astonishing, right? It's like 500 to 1 developer to operator ratio. So truly scaling your developers to do what they need to. Being able to do millions of apps in production with failover. Having no downtime. This is true stat, no downtime, I think, in 8 years. Being able to, which is astonishing, right? When you think about it, being able to, when it comes to data, being able to really go from small scale, low volume, all the way to high volume, but more importantly, being able to handle disparate sources of data. People can specialize. I'll do only SQL, I'll do only documents. But if you're a company that's trying to build an app, you want to go across all of that. And I'm telling you, AI is forcing you to do that. That data intelligence gives that. So it's a mature set of products, but the other point that it would maybe come to mind is, okay, is it then old? No, it's mature, and we are continuously driving innovation. And that is why we keep tight hooks into the open source community, but huge amount of investment has gone in. And over the last, I would say, Mike, couple of years as Broadcom, even more focus on R&D and on this portfolio, right? Rather than dissipating our energy into 1,000 different projects, we are saying, hey, this is the platform for future, especially with AI now. PaaS and data intelligence have become PaaS, which is the Tanzu platform as a service. Abstracted levels have become even more important for the customers. And we are doing a lot of innovation in this platform. And this platform, by the way, has turned out to be perfectly suited to run AI applications, whether it is agents or MCP servers or your skills or building out the workflows or your RAG pipelines. It is just perfect because an AI app is also just yet another modern microservices app. And that's what we do the best.
That's a great explanation. Thank you, Purnima. Let's go on ahead. Great, thanks, Mike. We're talking about AI. One of the questions I wanted to ask was, how does Tanzu enable platform engineering teams to serve developers more effectively?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, if you are going to a hybrid cloud or a let us say private cloud, Just because you're going to a hybrid cloud or private cloud, you don't want lesser functionality than a public cloud, right? You want all that functionality, but you want additional governance, additional data control, additional compliance, additional security. And that's what makes this hybrid and a private cloud stack interesting. And you can't just have compute and Kubernetes. So by combining, let us say, VMware Cloud Foundation with this Tanzu stack, you're giving not only the core IaaS services and CAS, container as a service, but you're also giving equivalent to a BigQuery on-prem, but on a proprietary environment. You're giving an equivalent to a Cloud Run. You're giving an equivalent to a Vertex. And that is what I said a few seconds ago. When you do the higher level of abstraction, the value to the developer, to the organization is huge, because platform engineers or even infrastructure operators don't have to get requests from an app by app and say, oh, this app is us, so let me fix the pipeline. Let me fix the code. Let me insert the configuration of how it should be provisioned. Let me figure out how it should connect to a database. That is what platform engineers do, right? They curate it for each platform. Now the platform engineer can say, look, I don't care what is the app coming in. I'm going to create a golden path to production. I'm going to give you a standardized set of configurations that I define as a platform engineer, but then apps can change. And every time I'm not breaking this thing. And then the platform engineers are actually adding a lot more value than just doing whack-a-mole, because then you just think about higher order of security. How do I keep everything patched? How do I report on compliance for my industry? And by the way, we already have out-of-the-box compliance reports, right? So if you do the stack right, and if you set it up consistently, I mean, this has been there for 20 years almost. Most of the time, the issues of security and compliance are caused because of misconfigurations, right? And that configuration drift is what we settle down. And that is why, if, for example, if you look at all the compliance needs for an authority to operate in a government organization, let's say, that we would cover 98% of it because of the standardization. So that's what makes the platform engineer's life easier, which is I can now standardize and enforce. And when an app comes in, it always gets enforced. I'm not trying to do whack-a-mole, as well as I can make sure there's less downtime because it's all consistent stack. It is always patched and more secure because it's a consistent stack. And it is much faster for the developers. They don't have to wait on me. You just publish what is your standards, you publish your automation, and the developers simply use it.
Powerful stuff. Yeah, that's great. It's one of the things that got me so excited when we started looking at Tanzu platform, as we started to adopt VCF, and all of the things that come with it. So thank you so much for that explanation. Mike, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Unless you have something to add.
Hey, one question. There's a question,
Yes,
which
of
is a
course.
very interesting question, which I think we should pick up, which is an attendee saying, hey, we are satisfied with our current VMware setup. Where does Tanzu realistically plug in without forcing a big re-architecture or adding costs?
Yeah.
And I like that because, first of all, thank you. I'm glad you like our VMware setup. And as Broadcom, we are very, the core, by the way, Tanzu is also part of the VMware portfolio, if you're not aware. So I'm glad, when you say VMware, I'm assuming vSphere or VCF setup, and I'm very thankful for that. That's wonderful. And the value is very simple. Are you trying to build, as I pointed out, and maybe we can go back to that slide with the product portfolio, which has platform, Spring, and data. And do you mind, Duncan, if you're going back to that?
Sure, it's slide 5. Yeah, there we go.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, why would you want to add on top of, let us say, VMs and containers? So if, look, you have only static applications that are not changing, then I would say really a value of PaaS is low. If you're not writing your own applications, the value of PaaS is low, right? Mm-hmm. You should just go with what we are offering with our core VMware setup, because all you need is just containers and VMs. You package your application into that, put it in, and you're not changing it much. But if you are though there is a little problem there, which is around patching, but I'll come to that. But if you are actually writing code, even if it's a little bit of code, you need to update the code. You need to patch the infrastructure. You need to patch the application. It is a nightmare. So Tanzu simply is, think of it as an advanced service of VCF. You tick mark, we are natively integrating it into VCF, right? So we have natively integrated into VCF. So the VMware stack is a full stack from Broadcom. It has got the VCF and Tanzu, both from VMware. And when you enable Tanzu, it just comes in as a tick mark advanced service. You enable it, and once you enable it, you immediately get this power of the platform, and your developers get a simple interface from which they can start pushing their applications and getting them into production. So that entire automation layer of getting application into production, keeping it patched, secured, and updated is the value of the value of Tanzu. So if you're trying to modernize your environment, so the way I would think about it is, hey, you've built a cloud, but let us say a lot of times customers tell me, I've built a cloud, but no, my developers are not coming. My applications are not coming on the cloud. So the first step we do is try to leverage Tanzu for something called an application assessment. So we go and look at it, you look at automatically discover your applications, look at your applications, tell you what is wrong with them and tell you what is a right fit, and immediately migrate it onto your cloud. That itself gives you a lot of value. It tells you, are your applications out of date? Are they patched? Can they be fixed? And can they be running in containerized operations? So immediately you went from a mess of a lot of different types of formats and models, etc. Do you discover, you onboard to the platform, and when you onboard to the platform, it runs, of course, on VCF. You have now a set of consistent containerized applications running on your platform. Very, very powerful capability built into the platform. Second thing,
absolutely.
Second thing you do is, and that is a huge value in itself. Customers are, save depending on the size, millions of dollars in terms of security, in terms of patching tools, in terms of pipeline tools, in terms of professional services for assessments, etc. The second one is, once it is on the platform, it becomes much easier to keep it patched, updated, and meet all your regulation requirements. So if you are spending a lot of money trying to figure out how to deliver your HIPAA compliance, how to deliver your PCI compliance, and so on, and report on it, this is already built into the platform, and make sure the platform stays consistent. And then the third piece is, if you are making any changes to your code, you need some automation, and this by far will make it so much easier to stay abreast with the business. So hopefully that answered the question, and if you have more, we can always answer.
I could add on.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
If I could add on, I think I love this question because, I was part of the product team for decades at Lightedge, sat with VMware strategist leaders for many years. And I would tell you 5-10 years ago, if you asked this question, the answer would be, well, it's going to take a lot of time. You're going to have to add a lot of stuff and a lot of cost. Right?
Yes.
Everything was the foundation with vSphere, but you had to add on top of it. Broadcom is really taking a lot of hits, I feel like, in the marketplace for this perception of increasing price. But what they really did was strategic. They started with the premise of, if next gen cloud requires these capabilities, then why are we making it difficult for customers to get to it? Why don't we get customers into the framework they need to be to take advantage of these things, VCF, and include the price for these capabilities in that framework, right? So the short answer to the question is, if you're aligned with VCF, which you may not be yet, but that's the direction you're looking at if you're a VMware customer. If you're aligned with VCF, the answer is it's there and it's already included. So you can take advantage of it immediately.
Right.
On the VCF part. And
right.
the Tanzu, of course, is a add-on, but it is integrated with VCF. So rather than giving you bag of parts, right? What we at Broadcom are doing with VMware portfolio, right, is on the VCF side, we took compute, network, storage, and Kubernetes, brought it together and gave it to you as a single product. So it's not like IKEA where you're taking wooden planks and trying to build your own chair.
Right.
And we are doing the same thing with the VMware portfolio up the stack. So you've got VCF that gives you compute, network, storage. Then you can layer on as an additional value, additional networking with our networking portfolio. And then you can layer on also additional platform and application and data capabilities with the Tanzu, but they all stitch together. So even Tanzu, by the way, even within my portfolio, within the Tanzu, there were many different pieces that you had to set up differently. Now we have spent a lot of effort so that it just comes out of the box. It installs into your VCF environment and you're up and running with your data services and your app services. That's the power here.
And such a great outcome.
Definitely doesn't require re-architecture. But the reason I talked about app assessment and onboarding is we spent a lot of time. We said, okay, people are scared because they think I have to rewrite my applications. I have to re-architect. That's not true. And now we've put in so much automation that I can just look at your application, tell you these 10 out of the 10 apps, 5 apps onboard directly. These 3 apps, you need to make minor changes and I'll automate it for you. And these 2 apps are going to be very old, monolithic. We may have to do more work. Right? That makes it so fast to adopt and get value.
Absolutely. Seeing where your application lives and how to bring it into the ecosphere here is that's a truly powerful tool, that assessment tool. I really like that. Let's go ahead and go on to slide 8, Mike. So, now we're really talking about Tanzu Platform's AI-assisted services. So now that we're taking care of technical debt with the assessment tool, every business leader is pushing on their technology teams to figure out how to use AI. No one wants to be left behind. One of the first places that we see a lot of AI being adopted is with the developers themselves. Can Tanzu help us with this AI-assisted software development boom that we're finding ourselves in?
Absolutely. Why don't you go one step back? This is just too much details. So I think we will leave these details out because we're still talking through the value. So as I said, there are, before we get into all this gobbledygook about platform, let us talk about
yes.
Okay?
Keep us honest here.
There are three main use cases I see, or I would say 2 main use cases. The first use case that is like we talk a lot about AI, but when we talk about AI in enterprise, when we talk about AI in regulated industries, it's slightly different. Everybody is not putting an open claw on their desktop and automating business processes with that, right? That'll just cause so much of security issues. So what we are doing is number one use case is coding. And it is impressive. I myself have adopted in my teams the coding assistant use case. Coding assistants from Claude from Anthropic and Gemini from Google are quite spectacular, including, and so is OpenAI. And tools like cursors really enable you to do that. So the question is, okay, all these coding assistants are there. They help me write great code. What are we doing? What are you bringing to the table, Tanzu? Great. Right. So that is where I will talk about what we do to help you deploy, you leverage coding assistant. And then the second use case, it's in the order adoption. First, most people are using coding assistant to accelerate their business applications, construction of their business applications. And the second use case often is inserting AI into existing business applications. Right? I'm a healthcare company. Let's say I see a small healthcare company. I'm a healthcare company. And let us say I have a system that allows some easy answering of questions for patients. Can I add a NLP chat model? Right? That might be an improvement. Or I was talking to an insurance company. They are automatically, as policy claims come in, they want to match, right, with the policy and say, is it correct or not, and they want to just leverage AI, right, based on the claim or a written email that might come or a photo of an accident that might come, so on. So I think there are workflow type of things that people are trying to do within their business apps to use AI. So these are 2 things. With a coding assistant, you may or may not produce an AI app. You may just produce a regular app. That's okay. But you're using AI to do coding. And the second one is you're using AI within your business. Pretty much that's the 2 main use cases I see. So now let us talk about what does Tanzu Platform do. So Tanzu Platform has comes with these core 6 services. At the bottom is this Elastic App Runtime, which allows you to run applications in a sandboxed, secure way. Okay. And then it has got these developer services that tell you, help you develop in things like Spring very well, but it also has got a lot of out-of-the-box templates for building agents and MCP servers and so on. Build services that let you build not only applications, but also agents, out-of-the-box data services, because you can't build AI apps without data, and marketplace services that are an ecosystem of external third-party services, including, by the way, public cloud services, can be brokered in safely. So now I left out AI services by design, because let us say you're trying to deploy Coding Assistant to your environment. Often the problem with using Coding Assistant very well is that every time you ask Coding Assistant to, let us say, write an application for you, and maybe even you have designed the logic and you give it a prompt, it will give you a different piece of code. It will do logging differently. It will do auditing differently. It may even. So what we have done is we have created this in the developer services area. We have created a lot of skills and MCP adapters that plug into your Coding Assistant. And they imagine it's teaching, it's like a peer, or a advisor sitting in your Coding Assistant. And it tells your Coding Assistant how to build a Java and Spring app in an enterprise way, meeting compliance standards, meeting enterprise standard, meeting governance standard, so that it doesn't creatively go and do whatever it wants, right? And we are ourselves using it. It is very effective because it guardrails. Otherwise, the distance between the promise of AI and actually putting it to production in enterprise becomes too far, because AI is creating so much code. How do I debug the code? How do I make sure it's compliant? How do I make sure it's not secure? How do I make sure security issues have not been inserted? And that's where frameworks help, like Spring Framework that we ship with the product allows you to have, let us say, very enterprise class code written to guardrails. So that is the first thing that we do with Coding Assistant. The second thing is, almost if you're writing enterprise code with Coding Assistants, you want to extend with tools, the Coding Assistant. Often you would want to add Jira tools, Slack tools, and other third-party tools that make the Coding Assistant truly valuable to write enterprise code. These things, when you do tools, often called MCP servers and MCP plugins, where do you run them? How do you connect them? Like somebody connected a GitHub MCP server to an agent to say, hey, pull it from GitHub and write the code and check it back. But then it went and deleted a whole bunch of code. How do you prevent that? So what we do is that there's an AI middleware in the AI services in the platform, and you put all your MCP servers behind the AI middleware, which gives you RBAC, which gives you control. And then the Coding Assistant talks through the AI middleware to these MCP servers, making sure that the Coding Assistant cannot go haywire. It doesn't go and do something that you don't want to do it. So it is very, very powerful set of capabilities that we have. And the last key capability is you do want the Coding Assistant to just have a sandbox place where it can deploy, try it out, and things like that. You can also get it with the platform. So truly making easy. Our own IT team, GTO team, is using our platform that way, right? That's how we have deployed the Coding Assistant to hundreds of developers, but keeping them safe. So safe coding is what the platform allows you to do. And the second thing is, now that you've heard the middleware is there, the same problem is there when I have an existing app. The first problem is, if it's an existing app and you don't have, it's not modernized, it's hard to add AI, usually. So the first thing that as I said, we can assess an app, look at an existing app, and bring it into a containerized format automatically onto the platform. So now it's already ready, right, for AI. And then we have got out-of-the-box capabilities to build agents, run the agents in a sandbox way, connect to these MCP tools through the AI middleware, connect to any model securely, whether it is your on-prem model or a cloud model. Most people will use cloud model, and that's okay. But you want to connect to it securely. So the AI middleware lets you do that. And finally, the AI middleware also allows for that chain of trust and authentication and security management that is very critical. So if you again think that the AI app is just another app, then you start saying, okay, if I want to add AI to my insurance app or to my patient triaging app, let's say. I'm making up some apps here.
Yeah, sure.
Onboard the app to the platform, modernize it, then you can start adding capabilities. Now, when you do this, in the second use case, when you're automating workflow, data becomes very critical. And that's why the built-in data services are very critical. You want a vector database, you've got PG Vector built into it. And pretty much, by the way, other things also. It's not just the ones that we ship out the box. We have got about Kafka included, and we've got about 100 plus open source packages that are available that you can instantiate, right? Because this play space is moving fast. And so you can instantiate those data services, but we also have out-of-the-box data service to bring in data, stream it into the app so that you can vectorize it, use an embedding model to vectorize it, and then easily come up with answers for your application, okay? So important thing is to think not of AI as something that is in an ivory tower sitting somewhere. You pull it more mainstream. Try using it in your coding, whether you use our platform or not, and try inserting it into your existing apps, right? That is the way, because AI is just yet another component of the modern software stack. And it should be free.
Yeah, it's a great explanation and truly powerful what you can do with that stuff. We lost our slide, Dick. Oh, we lost Mike too. Oh no. Mike got kicked off. Yeah, we only lost Mike. That's okay. Here he comes back. We'll get him back online here. Get our slide deck back up here if we can. Because I want to move on to some of the other items that we wanted to talk about. So let's. I think we're done with this one, Mike. Let's go, Dick, to the next one.
This just talks about the AI middleware, which I talked about. Right, you don't want unfettered access for your coding assistant or your custom agents or your apps to models, whether it's private or public. We support all of them, to MCP tools, real-time data, dynamic config, agents, skills. But what we have done is these are all available as first-class citizens in the platform to be instantiated, but we broker and audit and secure the connectivity automatically for you. Think of it just in that at simple terms.
Yeah, great stuff. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one, Mayor Mike. So let's talk a little bit about compliance in the Tanzu platform. Security and compliance are board-level concerns. How does Tanzu embed security into the platform rather than bolted on as an add-on?
It's this boring stuff that I love. That is what we really take off the customer's head, right? Security, compliance, daily patching, brushing your teeth type of modern stuff that you miss. And that is where the biggest problems come in. And by the way, I can guarantee you AI is going to make it worse. More code thrown in, less tested, less production quality. The minute you put it onto the platform, minute you take any app and put it on the platform, and this is the value, you look at everything above virtualization stack, right? That you get already with my Broadcom's VMware VCF stack, and with Broadcom's VMware Tanzu stack. Operating system gets locked down. You get a seed image, it's highly controlled, highly tight, and it's continuously patched. And the operating system of the infrastructure is what I'm talking about, is continuously patched. So my customers, for example, repave their environment once in every few days, throw away the containers and rebuild it without application downtime. We do all the automation automatically. Boring stuff, but very critical. Containers
very powerful.
Are automatically spun up with the latest and greatest patches and code. Not just that, you don't have to think about, oh, I'm running Java, or I'm running Python, or I'm running .NET. What is the dependencies? What are the packages? Is the package updated? Is the package repository, does it know all the dependencies? We automatically take the latest and greatest and do the builds so that it's always up to date from a security standard. And we make sure that the data is plugged in and always, if there is a data pipeline that is being used from us, then that is also secure. Not only that, at the app platform and source code level, if you're using things like Spring, if you're using our governance SDK, then now you suddenly get even more levels of application control. And every time a new application code is checked in, we can pick it up, we can test it, we can validate it, and make sure it is secure. So it is that level of automation that is needed to meet these compliance requirements. 98.2% of technical controls for authority to operate. And this people don't understand when I just take PaaS and all that feels very nice, but it's really when you say the minute you have now taken an application and put on the platform, don't even modify the application, you immediately get automated level of compliance and security and controls. And all the way plumb down through the top networking level, to the app level, to the networking level, to the virtual infrastructure level. And this is fully integrated with the VMware stack. So I'm going to say, sorry, Mike, I'm sure you want to add this, but this is something that I'm passionate about, because a lot of times we talk about the cool stuff, AI, this and all, but it's really the core fundamentals of the platform that make it so powerful, right?
And I think when you peel back the hood, this is the cool stuff for me. I love this. That's a great explanation. Go ahead, Mike. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, buddy. Sorry.
I think it resonates with our customers too, right, Duncan? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
Long history helping regulated entities. You're exactly right. Standing up the platform is the easy part. It's the ongoing day-to-day care and feeding, the patching, the things like that really matter, right? And if you miss it once, you have problems. So it has to be consistent.
And imagine you take that off the head, right? So in fact, I feel it's even
Right.
more important for SMBs, mid-sized companies, because you don't have time. When you put an application on the platform, you just say, hey, make sure keep it updated. You want to stay updated. It takes a whole bunch of headache. You don't need all your teams to learn the full vertical stack, because in a smaller company, you can't have that much specialization, right? So then going and hiring every person, one networking person, middleware person, container person, you can't hire that. So you're trying to get vertically, like what they call full stack developer equivalent, a full stack engineer for the infrastructure. Very hard. Platform takes care of that.
I think supply chain risk too is kind of a new emerging thing we're seeing, right? Like the ability to kind of take care of the day-to-day care and feeding, but when you're in a framework like this, coming in later and saying my supply chain is disrupted, I need to move, a security vendor to something else, or I need to move this to something else, right? It becomes that much easier when you're building it
because you're just plugging in a new thing. That's it.
Right. Super powerful. Good stuff. Let's go on to the next slide if we can. Talk us through this slide here, Purnima. As we're talking about Broadcom's AI coding governance.
I think I already talked about this.
We did. We hit the hot spots here, didn't we?
Look, our Broadcom is already using Tanzu platform, and we have rolled out our coding assistants to thousands of developers. And there are two models. The coding assistant can run on a desktop, or it can run on a remote environment in Tanzu platform. But most importantly, that AI middleware brokers access to models and MCPs. Great.
Let's go to the next one. So, I wanted to bring this slide up and talk from a product point of view. One of our superpowers at Lightedge is really this hybrid play. But also, when we started to look at VCF, when we started to look at Tanzu platform, it was really about how can we enable developers to do more, companies to do more in a seamless, safe, integrated way. And I think that's where the story here gets really amazing, and you see the power in what we're doing here. And as Purnima has eloquently pointed out to us, all of these things come together. It adds functionality to Lightedge and our capabilities and our product portfolio. It also lets Mike go out to the field and really talk about great customer outcomes, and that's what we're working with Broadcom hand in hand to provide for our customers, on a day in, day out basis. Let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to turn this one to you, Mike. I think it's oh wait, excuse me. I do have one more question. I'm so sorry, guys. So Purnima, I know you're also very passionate about data. Tanzu has a data intelligence as a major part of the portfolio. Can you give us a brief on what that is? We'd love to have you back soon to go deeper into it at some point. But can you give us kind of a view into this?
Yeah, as I mentioned, often now data is really coming into the focus a lot, and most customers tell me, in order to get value out of the data that I have, I might have patient data from a healthcare information system. I might have insurance policy data. Do I need to ship all my data up to the cloud service in order to get any value. So by the way, data is a broad word. I already talked about databases. That is already part of the platform, right? That you need for it. Now we are talking about, I've got data. It's sitting in Oracle. It is sitting in Cloudera. It is sitting in file systems. I don't know how to get any answers out of it. I've got all this huge data and I want to ask a simple question. I have to go to 25 people, get 35 different queries, do joins, do some dance and drama, and then I get an answer. And so what Tanzu Data Intelligence does is, first and foremost, it's private data, right? Focus on private data. So if you have got data on-prem that you don't want to ship to the cloud, then how do you bring the intelligence to the data as opposed to taking the data up to the cloud? And so we have a very simple, powerful capability based off something called Gemfire, which allows you to have bring your data and even keep it federated in the sources where it is, and immediately add a federated query layer on top of SQL, on structured data, documents, blob store, stuff that you've stored in blob store or any open table format, and ask questions, SQL questions, right? So that's what it does. It's a data lakehouse. You can bring all your data into the data lakehouse, or you can federate multiple data sources into the data lakehouse. And now you can start performing analytics. And the best part is we have added actually we are adding a AI interface so that a business analyst now, once this data intelligence is set up, could just ask NLP questions, human language questions, and say, hey, how well is my industry performing in this sector? And now you can, if you have this data intelligence, you can ask questions like that without having to know complex SQL and so on. So in order to set it up, you just ingest your data through ingestion and workflow capabilities. And then once it is in the databases, you can have this federated query to easily ask the questions. It's a highly distributed, very, very high performance SQL. It is tightly integrated into VCF infrastructure. So it leverages the power of vSAN. It leverages the power of the virtualization that we have. And then it's got built-in ML models to do analytics. It's got built-in analysis capabilities, graphing capabilities, visualization capabilities, and now, of course, NLP querying capabilities. So that's what we have with data intelligence.
Awesome. Great stuff. Mike, do you want to add anything?
I think Purnima said it really well, right? To me, it just this really pulls the vision together, right? It's back to that earlier slide with you can do these things in the private cloud or the public cloud, but like Purnima said, it's a matter of, do you want your data going out to these various locations, or do you want these services coming into your data, right? And particularly in the regulated space, particularly in the cost, sensitive space, we're seeing a lot of pullback. Look, everybody's going to have workload that lives all over the place. We're all going to be hybrid in the future, but where you can control this, I think there's value in that private cloud modality, and having a partner like Broadcom that opens up these kinds of capabilities and lets us and our customers bring these services back in-house, if you will, in a scalable manner. I think it's a really powerful message.
I agree. And for our customers, it's just the feature set here is so rich, so robust, and really provides those real world outcomes that customers are looking for, enterprises are looking for. I love this story. So I just wanted to
and maybe,
thank you.
Duncan, the best part is because in a light edge type of model, you're going to install the platform already. You're going to install the data intelligence already. So from your customer's perspective, who might be listening in, getting started and running is even easier, right? You just go to the console and start using.
That's a great point. And that's what we love to do here at Lightedge, is to make make all of these workloads easier to inhabit, but also easier to get started with, and really drive those great outcomes that we're looking for. Well, this has just been an exceptional session. I want to thank you so much, Purnima, for joining us and providing your insight into this great tool. And I just want to open it up to the viewers. If you have any questions for the panel here, please let us know. Put it into the chat. We'll give you a little bit of time here, and we'd love to answer those for you. We'll see if we get any good ones. Everybody's quiet today. I think everybody's taking in what you had to say. Look, the Tansu platform is feature rich. It is really a very interesting change in the way that you would develop code and deploy it in a container way. But also, the AI tools that come along side by side with it really up the game as far as development and pushing that code and just doing all of the things that you have to do to make that modernized workload work in an effective manner. And Kansas really got that licked. And so appreciate your time today, Purnima. Thank you so much for the insight. And thanks to all of our viewers for listening so intently. That's where we'll stop it here. We're a little bit over time. So thank you, everybody, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks all.